welcome back to another episode of Mason Wine and Food. And today we're going to be covering chimichurri, skirt steak. It's an Argentinian delicacy. Of course, you can find it elsewhere in South America, in Uruguay or Paraguay. But Argentina is the homestead of it, and I'm going to show you how to make it two ways. For this dish, like I said, we're going to prepare it two ways. We're going to prepare it the traditional way, that's using a mortar and pestle, and then we're going to use a modern way using a blender. For this, you will need the same ingredients: salt, pepper, garlic, red wine vinegar, olive oil, and I'm using two different kinds of parsley. I'm using a curly parsley and a traditional parsley. You can also use cilantro if you'd like to. And we're gonna finish it off with garlic. Just look at the ingredients list on the side here so you can see a little bit more precise amounts. To be honest, it's going to be bunches. Bunches of each parsley, 3 or 4 cloves of garlic, depending how garlicky you like it. And also, here is the skirt steak or flank steak or flap meat steak, as this says. It is a grainy part of the cow. It's coming from, let's say, the rib cage area going towards the front legs. And it can be tough if you don't know how to cut it, but it can be really rewarding in flavor when you do know how to cut it. And I'm going to teach you that coming right up. Okay, the first way we're going to start this is the traditional method. We're going to use a mortar and pestle. If you don't have a mortar and pestle, obviously use the blender. If you don't have a blender, just do a fine chop on the following vegetables. So we're going to do this the traditional way first. And the way you want to do that is you want to start with your garlic. We like garlic, so I'm going to use 5 cloves of garlic. And then I'm going to add a little bit of salt to it. And the reason I add the salt to it is the salt and the garlic, when you start to break them up, the friction of it helps out, but the salt helps turn this into a fine paste. So it doesn't take that much to do. So you just want to be able to work the garlic. Done with that, you want to do a fine, actually kind of a fine chop, but between a fine and a rough chop on your herbs. So one thing I didn't mention earlier, these are 2 types of parsley. I forgot to mention oregano also. So I'm going to take half of this, leave the other half to the side for the other method. I'm going to take some of these stems off. We don't need those in our chimichurri. And use our trusty chef's knife and just chop everything up pretty nicely. Not too fine. You want to have a bit of a rustic appeal to it, but you want a decent chop on there. It's actually a little bit more than I need, so I will save some of this for the other blend. And we'll just continue doing the chop. And if the herbs lasting, we're going to add about the equivalent of 2 tablespoons of oregano. Go ahead and add everything else to your little mortar, and we're going to mash it down just like we're muddling a mojito. We're going to do the exact same thing because you want to be able to crush some of those leaves, which will really open up a lot of the flavor that it has inside. When we're done with that, we just add the remaining 4 ingredients. We already used salt a little bit earlier with the garlic, so we need just a little bit. And you add your pepper. Your olive oil. So this is 3/4 of a cup. can stay in here. Plenty of room. Now, a lot of people call for a bunch of red wine vinegar, up to 1/4 cup. I disagree. I think it has too much tartness. So what I'm going to do, instead of 1/2 cup, I'm going to use just under 1/4 cup. And that's pretty much it. Mix everything in together and let this just come together over the next half hour, hour, and you can keep this up to, well, however long you want. And it's ready to go. It's all rough chop. And we will let this marinate for a little while. And while that's doing that, I will show you the blender way. All right, I'm coming back real quick. Everything's set up in the blender, and before I put the oil in, I'm actually gonna get it started first, and that's why you don't see the cap on top of the blender, because it's going to emulsify with the vinegar that's already in there. So we're gonna start this out on low, and sorry if it's too loud even for you. Set it aside. Look at that. It looks like a pesto. As a matter of fact, chimichurri's nickname, Argentinian pesto. So, also we're gonna let this sit for a while, and while that's doing that, let's prep the steak and our cooking stations. All right, next step. While the chimichurri is coming together, and I put it in the fridge for right now, we have our skirt steak. Skirt steak or flap steak, flat meat steak is in the same region as skirt steak. It's in the bottom sirloin, but we have 2 strips here. One we're gonna do on the grill, one we're gonna do on the pan. And just like any steak, before you put it on heat, you wanna salt and pepper it. So we put a nice amount of pepper on there, not too much, because pepper tends to burn under heat. And just a little bit of salt. And we're gonna do this to the other side, and we'll cut to the chase. It's a really thin cut of meat, so you're gonna go probably about 6 to 8 minutes total. This is gonna be on high heat. So 3 or 4 minutes on one side, flip it 3 or 4 minutes, the other side, you're done. Don't cook it beyond that. You don't want a dry steak, but a more rare steak with when it comes to skirt steak can be a little bit more chewy. So there's 2 things you have to do: cook it properly and then cut it properly. And that's what we'll do right after we cook it. Anyway, you want to let your steak rest, and then you take a good sharp knife, and for this, I was talking about cutting against the grain. Now the grains on here go this way, from north to south in this case. And what you want to do is cut across that. So simply enough, this is a long steak, so we're going to cut it in half. And then, you can even cut it again if you'd like. And I like to do this at an angle. And I think we'll leave that one alone. I'm gonna cut this, so it kind of resembles strips. You cut into the grain so that it's not chewy. So when you go to plate, the grilled steak, I'm going to use the rustic chimichurri sauce that we made. And I should probably hold this in front of the camera and not off in the distance. This is the pan seared. and this is off the grill. I've written about it many times, but I'll say it right now on here. If you are a worshiper of beef, then Mendoza, Argentina is your Mecca. I was lucky enough to spend some time here, and the food was absolutely incredible. It's vegetables and beef, but that chimichurri sauce really made everything shine through in such a great way. And the greatest thing that you can complement it, greatest way you can complement it, is with Malbec from Argentina, from Mendoza. It is a perfect combination, and I cannot recommend it enough. Thank you for watching this video.